What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Lots changing in the landscape of Alberta. Again, with the G7 coming up, it's important to cover a lot of what's happening with Alberta Independence, because the future of energy in this country is essentially at stake. The future of many businesses in this country, as well as their head offices, people's livelihoods. There's so many people talking about moving to Alberta. Should they hold a referendum vote? Because they want away from other provinces. You've got multiple provinces across the country talking about their exit from the federal government. And in fact, nobody in the federal government seems to care. Why is that? Well, hopefully those questions are answered soon. What we have today is Danielle Smith addressing a massive problem. One that Rick Bell over at the Calgary Herald, I know we've been covering a lot of Rick Bell lately, but he's been doing a great job hammering out what's actually the pulse in Alberta, what's happening in Alberta with Danielle Smith. Now, Rick Bell is a fantastic columnist. I always get him confused with Don Braid. Don Braid is also at the Calgary Herald, but he's very lefty. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Rick Bell, however, usually has great columns. I would highly advise following him on social media. Here he says that Premier Smith says that Trudeau lives in Carney's camp, and that's a problem. I want to go through this because recently Danielle was at a conference in Calgary talking about this pre-G7. Again, this is where the writing is on the wall for where Alberta moves going forward. We've had other videos coming out showing how UCP voters are likely to follow Danielle Smith. UCP voters are likely to vote in favor of referendum once Alberta is given a vote. Forget that we still have the silent majority that isn't being polled yet, that isn't being covered here. It says here, you really didn't think it would be that easy to get rid of him. No, Trudeau lives on. The spirit of the former Liberal Prime Minister is alive. The phase out the oil sands Prime Minister, the I listen to my green guru Stephen Guilbeault and can't see that he is walking disaster Prime Minister. The I screwed up so many time files. The I need a high-powered calculator to add up the list of loser moves Prime Minister. The Trudeau spirit lives on because his pals, his political soulmates, the people who were around him when the Liberal government screwed over Alberta, have not been purged. This has been brought up numerous times within the House of Commons already, in question period, around the water cooler, the discussions that happen every day with people in politics. We still don't know who the corrupt MPs are that are influencing China in our elections. We don't know about SDTC. We don't see anybody going to jail over Dalian GC strategies. We've just seen, hey guys, no more coming in here for 7 years. Keep all the money you stole from us, though. It's as though they've just moved on. Meanwhile, the criminals who left Justin Trudeau have all been brought back into the fold by Mark Carney and are now a part of his administration. What do you think that's going to do for Alberta independence? What do you think that's going to do for those in Alberta who have put up with a lost decade already? Businesses, oil companies, energy companies that have all put up with this for the last 10 years that really see the writing on the wall. I'm not talking about people who vote with emotion. I'm talking about people who look at hard statistics and say, where's the money? Where's our future? How do you think they're going to vote when this has gone unaddressed? It says here they have not been banished to political purgatory. Far from it. They are sitting pretty in seats of power. Every day, as often as he can, Carney tells us how his Liberal government is a new government, even though they're just recycled old crooks. Then you look at the lineup, and pretty much it is the same old team. Trudeau retreads shamelessly, sitting on the Liberal front bench, smiling. On Wednesday in Calgary, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was on stage at the Global Energy Show. The Premier is asked a simple question. Smith needs to convince Carney to fast-track a pipeline to the West Coast, and she has to get Carney to trash the anti-oil policies brought in by Justin Trudeau, who is no longer in office, and Trudeau's minions, who are still at the trough. Again, that's not going to happen. Even if the Carney government approves fast-tracking said pipeline just to get, independence talks settled down, I think it's too little too late. Because he will not scrap his cap. We're rhyming now. He won't scrap the cap on oil production. We know where he stands when it comes to industrial carbon taxes. We know how Mark Carney already wants to tax everyone's equity, as he said in his book Values, to take away from hardworking Canadians while paying for a UBI system. This guy wants to destroy the country. That's why he's not talking about the sentiments in Alberta. How's the convincing going? Carney talks about Canada as an energy superpower, but he hasn't spelled out what those pie-in-the-sky words mean, because he's just like Justin. Pierre called this ages ago. Where's Carney headed? Premier Smith, you talk to him. Smith says the Prime Minister faces a problem. A lot of people who imposed the bad policies over the last 10 years are still in key positions in either his government or his caucus. Either bigwig paper shufflers or supposed deep thinkers or members of Parliament who Carney has named to his inner circle. Every day they act as if they are absolved of all liberal sins, and when opposition points to liberal stupidity or corruption or gross negligence, the Carney crew brush it off. Smith says she recognizes a real challenge for Carney in climbing down on some of those nasty laws and regulations the Trudeau Liberal government put in place, nastiness that amounted to an attack on Alberta oil and gas and Albertans. Again, she's saying what she needs to say as a premier. Pardon my dyslexia. Premier with a mandate. She's trying to at least negotiate as much as she can for a unified Canada. But Danielle Smith is no idiot. She knows the writing on the wall. She knows where Albertans stand. And she also knows the likelihood of the Liberals coming around and doing anything about this. She'll be given soft whispers and strong promises of a prosperous Alberta. And then everybody goes back to their office and does virtually nothing. They just keep dangling and stalling with that carrot on a stick. Quote here, the challenge is he has a lot of people in his caucus who still believe those policies are the right way to go. Bingo. Smith is walking on the sunny side of the street. She says Carney demonstrated pragmatism on rolling the consumer carbon tax back to zero. No, he didn't. He knew the consumer carbon tax would kill his chances to be prime minister, so he deep-sixed it. Does Carney really think if he doesn't give the Alberta government what it wants, it kills his chances to stay on as prime minister? I believe no. He understands that the East will still support him because Alberta, as we've shown in other videos, was pulled within Ontario and Quebec, and they've said that we just whine too much, that we need to go. While we wait for the next chapter in the mystery of the Prime Minister who couldn't give straight answers, oh boy, that would make a good book, Smith is working with oil patch types on a pitch for a pipeline to the West Coast. Smith feels strongest about a pipeline to the BC port of Prince Rupert and some of the American options. The American options are the key here, folks. With the G7 incoming, it's been floated around that there's a possibility Donald Trump will say or do something controversial to the Canadian government. Whether or not that happens is yet to be seen. Again, if we go based on Donald Trump's track record, I wouldn't put it out of the question or the realm of possibility. It says here, but a pipeline can't get built with the Liberal policies making it impossible to get a pipeline built. She mentions 9 nasty Liberal brainwaves, such as the cap on oil and gas emissions and the tanker ban off the West Coast and the so-called No More Pipelines law. That's my short list. I have a much longer list of things we need to fix. The energy crowd erupts in applause. So again, anybody saying that investment is being killed by Alberta talking independence, if they're applauding Danielle Smith by saying this needs to have a fix, well, the fix is independence. That's the ultimate fix. That's the kill switch. Investment hasn't stalled in this province because Danielle Smith has lowered the threshold for a citizen-driven referendum. She's listening to her constituents. She's talking about getting away from terrible federal policies. That makes energy companies happy. I don't know how people can't connect that dot when it comes to the business world or the political world. As for those wagging their finger and saying separate talk is hurting investment, Smith fires back. As compared to what? Compared to $500 billion worth of investment we lost because of terrible federal policy that scared away investment? There could have been pipelines, LNG projects, the tech frontier mine. The federal government built the Trans Mountain Pipeline because no one was willing to build it with bad policies, creating a chill on private investment. So again, the proof is in the pudding, folks. Anybody saying investment is being halted because of separatist talks? I know they use that word a lot. They're using that word to criminalize the talk of independence, by the way. So keep your eyes open for that. That's how you can tell who's on the right side. It all points to a flawed government that doesn't want to invest in its future. She puts, we're left with Carney. The Sphinx in Egypt is less of a riddle than the Prime Minister. You can see my skepticism, Smith says. I've seen he has two different career paths he's been on. I'm wondering which is going to emerge, the pragmatic banker or the net zero alliance booster. Place your bets. Well, Liz Truss warned Canadians not to vote in Mark Carney. Yet people worried about their portfolios in Southern Ontario gave the finger to cameras and voted Mark Carney in anyways. Virtue signalers who were worried about men being allowed to go in women's bathrooms voted in Mark Carney. Now we stand at a precipice of multiple angry provinces, not just Alberta, that are talking about secession from Confederation. They're talking about referendums. They're talking about leaving, making a Western alliance. The list goes on. What happens in the future is anybody's guess, but strong numbers are pointing that there is a shakeup in our country. The federal government doesn't want to recognize it. They also don't want to do anything to fix the problem. So for anybody saying that these things won't happen, the question I have for you is, do you honestly believe that angry Canadians are going to continue to stand aside and allow a corrupt federal government to continue taxing them to death and saying nothing will change? I've said multiple times, there's only so far you can push an animal into a corner before it swipes back. Alberta has been far in the corner for over 10 years, let alone a couple of decades. They've had enough. Saskatchewan has had enough. Even Wab Canoe in Manitoba is floating the idea of maybe it's time we start thinking about other options here. When you have the net zero environmental Mark Carney coming to play, saying, I'm just going to continue on with my bogus dream because I'm the head of the World Economic Forum. I'm sitting on its board. I have investments to worry about. I have Brookfield to worry about. This man is going to do nothing to benefit Canada. And I actually applaud his actions because the longer he does this, the further it's going to drive independence, the further it's going to push for multiple provinces to begin their exit from Confederation. Not that anybody should be disrespecting Canada, but definitely disrespect the government that spat on the flag and wiped their ass with it long before we thought about leaving. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think down below. Do you think that it's independence talks that are pushing investors to stand by, or do you think that it's a lost liberal decade that's caused investors to say, we can't throw money at the wall anymore and hope it sticks? Let me know your thought down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you hit that button, click the bell for all notifications so that you never miss a beat whenever new content drops on this channel. Join me live each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our weekly live streaming show, where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go through everything that happened this week in politics, everything we know coming up in the week ahead. We have memes, we have laughs, we kick back and enjoy with you guys, the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I got tongue-tied there. To hear what you guys have to say outside making these videos. I always look forward to hearing what you have to say each and every week. I most importantly look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.